that. So my name is Frank Victoria. Some of you know me. I'm going to talk to you about two things that I've been obsessing about for years. Every time you see an image that is not predicted as an image by me, so I do one a day and more, 5 a day sometimes. Where do I come from? So I was an illustrator. I've been working as an illustrator for years. This is a comic book I did, published in French, by a French company. I've worked on films, notably The Hobbit and many others like Tintin and Thor and a few others, violent movies. This is some of my design, like this axe, Thorin's axe. Got quite a lot of weapons in this movie and many other things. I've also done a lot of design, other type of design. So this is an airplane scheme I did for an airplane in New Zealand, which is now flying. They've got 2 airplanes painted with my color scheme there. It's quite cool. And then since I've been a lecturer, I've been painting quite a lot of, I've been having more time to do my own things in the evening, so I do worry less about being published or anything, and more about getting somewhere artistically. And I've been doing about painting a day, this kind of speed painting like that. So the 3 major themes that I want to talk to you about very quickly, the things that I've been obsessing with are history, design, and storytelling. History, to be a good concept artist, to work in the film industry, or to be a good comic book artist, the more you know about history or anything, the better you'll be. This is the definition in Wikipedia. History is the study of past events, particularly in human affairs. So very simple. Design is the art or action of conceiving and producing a planned drawing or something before it is made. So this is where I've been working most of my life, just designing for films. You're before anything is going to happen, before the shooting of a film. Obviously, if you're working on comic books, your artwork is the finished product. So not before, but the ending. Storytelling is the social and cultural activity of sharing stories, often with improvisation, theatrics, embellishment. Stories or narrative have been shared in every culture as a means of entertainment, education, cultural preservation, and instilling moral values. That's the definition, the official definition. I was wondering, how far can I go and find the thing that I've been obsessing with? And I can go actually quite far, about 30,000 years ago. These famous paintings from, so the 2 on the left there, prehistoric time, are from Lascaux. The one there from Lascaux too, which is about 30,000 years ago. And the one in the middle is 15,000 years ago. It's in Altamira in Spain. These things are amazing because it seems like the artists back then have nailed the exact same thing that we try to nail today. They've got the basic things that work for us today, which is the silhouettes. They nailed the silhouettes, a bit of texture, and a very clear understanding on the representation of the world. So you can think of this as, well, this is accomplished art. We don't know what the rough these were. People sketch on sands or something. This is accomplished artists. That story there, for example, is 15,000 years later. We can still read it. We can understand that these 4 people got into hunting these deer, and they got 3-4 arrows onto this guy in the middle. We can read it now because it's so clear. It's beautiful. The design, the aesthetic. On the left there, even though it's older, you have a feeling of texture. So you have the feeling of the fur of the bison, as well as the strong silhouettes. Once again, the strong silhouettes. And they have the basic core elements of design, which I've been telling to students, which is thick and thin. Things don't stay the same level everywhere. You have thin legs and thick bodies. It's very important, these kind of things. You play with it like you play with music. I see a direct link between this and what modern comic books are. So these are examples of 2 of my favorite. Every time you see an artist, they're my favorite. I got about hundreds and hundreds of favorite artists. Jeff Jones and Jordi Bernat, a Spanish artist. I think the will to tell stories is the exact same thing that these people 30,000 years ago were having. There's a bit of texture, but most of it is clear, accomplished artwork with decisions, black, white, clear lines, and the storytelling, the exact same preoccupation worked with these images as it did for the prehistoric images. It's not a history lesson, but I'm just going back and forth in time just to prove my point. Oops, back. Oh. Egyptian art, so a bit further than the, well, closer to us than the prehistoric time. Beautiful silhouettes, storytelling, same preoccupation that we do in comic books. You look at the clarity of the line, the precision of these lines. It's amazing. This also has text inside the image, exactly like a modern comic has. If you could read these hieroglyphs, you could read the story. Well, I don't know what the story is, but I'm guessing that Anubis, the god of the underworld, is grabbing this guy to be judged. And Anubis again, this weighing machine. If you could read that, the hieroglyph, you could actually tell what the backstory is. But I'm looking at the design there and the line. So if you look at the line on the cloth there, you can see transparency. If you're a film designer or a costume designer, you can look at this and get inspired to design your own costumes exactly from the period. And you can, of course, expand, which is what I've been doing for years working on big movies. We looked at these, every kind of artifact that we can think of. This links directly to, for example, the ligne claire, the Belgian famous style. Jacobs there, so it is Hergé for Tintin, and then it's Jacobs. Jacobs famous for having done only 8 comics in about 35 years of his career. But they're absolutely beautiful. They've got this extremely well-researched, fine line, as clear as possible. I can see the exact same preoccupation that he had, that the ancient Egyptians had. Of course, this comic is as well, is also about Egyptian art, a story based in Egypt. I'm pretty sure that he had looked at all these because he was interested. So this is a fantasy story, obviously, but it's really linked. It has a direct link to me with the previous piece of artwork. If you look at Wikipedia, they'll tell you the Bayeux Tapestry is the original comic book because it tells a story. It's about 70 meters long, goes all the way around the room. Same preoccupation with design, with readability. If you look at the armor, the costumes, the legs protection, the rigs on the horses, you can actually design things for films, including for high fantasy films like The Hobbit and Game of Thrones and things like that, directly linked to this, directly looking at that. Of course, why they say it's a comic book, it's because it tells a story and history with the big H, and it has text inside the image. We don't know who did it actually. The date is kind of controversial. Probably a bunch of ladies in England did that. So it's for our stuff where it should be. Comic book artist Herman, which I was really lucky to meet the other day because he's been one of my hero as a kid, doing so many comics. And I met him in Leeds of all places a couple of months ago. And from him, I knew that he actually looked at the Bayeux Tapestry and looked at all these costumes and things like that. So this is a story called Les Tours de Bois-Maury, which is something in medieval time. The same thing, the preoccupation with the line and the simplicity, the exactitude of the design costume, the period, and then the preoccupation with storytelling. I'll move forward in time into the 19th century, and we have our friend Arthur Rackham, who's very good at exaggerating and really simplifying the silhouettes. So it's just went to the extreme, just black and white, and this is so accomplished and beautiful. And also the thing that he was very good at was using negative space. If you look at the little statue there, this exists because everything else around it is there. So the statue is not there, but we see it. The playfulness with the light and black, the big shapes, and the style, obviously. So elegance. All the artists I'm showing you, they have a lot of, they're not just, this is not their first go. There's a lot of work behind the scene that you don't see, but this is really accomplished artwork, reached a high level. Another one of my favorite artists, called Dino Battaglia, is an Italian artist. I always love this because I always go back and look at this because of his use of negative space and almost abstraction of shapes. The way he's suggesting, for example, the field there. These two people are running from a piece of wood to another, and the field is just the white of the paper. You see the grass because you see these two images next to each other, but here it has disappeared, and it's all happening in your mind. Same thing here, you can see the grass is not there, it's just a paper, but in your mind you're filling the blanks. I've been fascinated by that, by this idea of negative space and how much you can remove. And there's a French filmmaker called Bertrand Tavernier who said art is a series of subtractions. And this is what I've been obsessing with progressively. How much stuff can you remove and make the image even more powerful than if you detail everything top to bottom and left to right? Just to take an example from Asia, famous Japanese artist Hokusai, who actually coined the term manga. Was explained by a Japanese lady. Ga means picture, and man means crazy or comic or wild or something like that. So you can translate it as comics or brushes gone wild or something like that. His manga, interestingly, are not sequential art. They're not telling a story. They're a group of drawings that are linked together by theme. The preoccupation is still the same though. It's silhouettes, costume design, elegant, thick and thin. You see these bows are very thin, these big costumes. If you're a costume designer or a designer for a movie, you look at that and think, oh yeah, I can do this, I can do that. And obviously it has a direct link with the modern manga. So there's an example, there's thousands and thousands of these manga. One of my favorites called Blade of the Immortal. Pretty violent. Normally there's a lot of action, so it's kind of hard to find a peaceful scene. But if you look at the costume design, for example, in this shot, this kind of wheat at the back of this guy, I found that really, really intriguing. And he probably had a look at period costumes to make this happen. As this benefits from the modern technique of filmmaking, so you can see the shot from the top down looking. You can see this is like literally a film shot. The fruits, etc. It's really beautiful in terms of narration, but the design, the fineness, the refinements, and the understanding of shapes, thick and thin, and detail is absolutely stunning. Sorry. Just to finish with the 20th century, 3 examples there of perfect design. If I were to not show you any image of these things, you would immediately know. If I say Batman, I don't need to do anything. You have an image in your head, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If I say Snoopy, same thing. Snoopy is really successful as a design. You can find him in the pages. He's just this little peanut head, and it's called the Peanuts. It's black and white shape, very, very easy to understand and comprehend. Tintin, same thing. Interestingly, Hergé couldn't draw very well, so he thought of making his main character with a little quiff, so we could differentiate him from the other characters, which became archetypal and emblematic. So these are 3 examples. There are many, many others in 20th centuries when the actual modern comics came, really started in 1920 somewhere. So where does that lead me? Me personally, I was doing, my first comic took me 3 years, a very long time, because I did everything, wrote the story, designed the characters, painted every single page. This was my second one, which was 2.5 years. I thought, you know what, by the time I'm 80, I'm going to have 6 comics and be forgotten. I need to draw faster. But because I'm a bit crazy, I drew everything, including the frame side, on the side by hand, and the bubbles and the text. There's nothing done by machine, because I really wanted everything to be done by me, top to bottom. So I ended up working in the film industry, and that's where you learn to draw fast. They actually shouted, you draw faster if you're not fast enough. I did a lot of concepts for big movies. So this is one for Adventures of Tintin. Sometimes you work with a script, sometimes with the script writer, sometimes the script is given to you. Here we were working with the script writer, who was not there, but we were giving him ideas on scenes that could happen in this movie. So this is a piece of concept art done in the first month of production, way before any digital assets is being made. This is destined to inspire the director. The director's students would really like that and thought, yeah, this is so cool. What I understood, what he really liked, was maximum jeopardy, maximum action. So the city there, it's in Morocco. There's bad guys. The city is on a mudslide going down the hill. The buildings are crashing, and people are firing, and Tintin is in danger, and he has to escape all these guys. So quite a maximum jeopardy, which is what in the film industry they really like. That's where I understood that design is the same thing. In the film industry, you have the normal world, and even if you're doing a normal story, supposedly from historical time, you still need to push it a bit further towards originality. And then you have the crazy world, which is they really want you to go there if you can. They will never go there and move it themselves. They'll say, good on you for having tried it. If you stay boring, then you get insulted, which I'll tell you about. Another design towards the end, I was nailing it to Balin's mace sword that I did. So this is where I started really thinking about, straightforward about silhouettes and what works. I was thinking, what could be cool? How can I make something, a weapon that is as crazy as can be, that is not from the real world? There's nothing like that in the real world. It's not a mace, it's not a sword, it's not an axe, it's something in between. It's a high fantasy weapon. It's not as crazy as Warhammer, like it doesn't have a meter wide because nobody can handle that. But it is crazy enough that it would not exist in the real world. The only difference is they made it red to match his costume in the movie, but it's pretty much my design. The silhouette is the same thing, you know, it's the important factor there. It's the thing I understood. Now, you can see there, this is a design, like a full page of design. So, because when you're designing for the film industry, even though you're doing it super fast, when it gets approved, someone comes to you and saying, well, how thick is it? Can you give me the engravings on the side? Can you tell me how it is on this side, and the thickness, the material? So you had to do all these little details. You can see the blade shape, all that thing, as well as designing as fast as you can. So that made me a lot faster. Obviously, I was using computers, which I didn't before. That's why I got a lot faster. And since I've been a lecturer, I've been having a bit more freedom to experiment with the thing I wanted, which is to remove all the details, all the things I was doing in Kit-Lipit, just get rid of that and think about the essential. The strength of an image should be read in a fraction of a second. You should understand what's going on immediately. And then the details are like the cherry on the pie, but sometimes they kill the sort of raw energy. So I'm more interested in sort of action pieces and storytelling than I am in actual refining the design as you are when you're doing something for the film industry. So these are 3 examples of speed paints. They're done in 30 minutes each. So time limit. Time is a great thing for us artists because it forces you to decide things. The students, they come to me and they show me these 2 drawings. Should I go with this or should I go with that? And you tell them you have to decide. And when you have no time, you have 30 minutes, you decide. And that's where you bypass all your sort of thinking, sort of rationalizing, all sort of things, and you just go with your instinct. And your instinct generally is right. It has perceived so many information that you cannot control otherwise. Been also doing a lot of sketches by hand. So I've got sketchbooks on me in the car, everywhere. Anytime I go, if I was to drop all the stuff I have in my pockets there, it would be like a post-apocalyptic movie when you have to drop your weapons. It's the same, but with paintings and wash and ink and all these markers and things. And I just do that all the time, just to try and nail these shapes, these things, these inking, this essential elegance to the thing that I'm obsessed with. Just to finish up, what is the holy grail? So number 1 is the silhouette. So if you think of a good design, the silhouette is number 1. Think about Gandalf. It's a big triangle on top of a hill. You've got it. Batman, same thing. Storytelling, so that's the thing that is linked directly to you as a designer or as a comic book artist. What comes before and after, what sort of things is it linked to? And a lot of the time you get given more information when you're working in the film industry than you will see in the film. And that helps you design something. So a costume comes from, this character has a costume from someone before him, his grandfather made it, the story is this. You won't see that in the movie because nobody has the time to tell everything. But for you as a designer, it's really important. The design, so after that is all about refining design, how much you put in, how much you remove. I think less is more, personally. Less is more is the most important message there. Use of negative space. To me, I kind of try to make negative space something that is there for you to trigger your imagination. This is where I've been aiming towards. So I was detailing everything back in the days, and I'm trying to remove and remove and remove. In the end, I'll just do one line or something that says, "Can you see it?" Well, that's for me just as an artist. So the two different fields I've worked on, the comic books, illustration, and the concept art or film, they have a different finality. So concept art is a film at the end. So your artwork is only there to help the film or the game or something. But in illustration and illustration comic books, your artwork is the final product. So just to finish, enough storyboarding. Okay, that was me.